Thank you. Okay, now let's look at the student parent handbook.
No changes in the student parent handbook to the elementary section of the handbook. Denny, can you direct them?
Yes, the only change for the middle school is on page 20, comes from our 7th and 8th grade team of teachers. The recommendation would be for academic eligibility, which is done on a weekly basis at the middle school. Instead of students failing 2 grades to become ineligible, the team of teachers wants that to become 1 failing grade rather than 2. 2 reasons for that. First one is just to raise the bar, and the second one is to be more in line with what the high school does with 1 failing grade. So that is the recommendation from the 7th and 8th grade team.
I've read this over quite a bit, and I would like to put a suggestion that we make things a little stiffer on page 15 and 21 for the consequences of the level 1. And I want to give the principals more teeth for the first, second, and third. And anywhere from 30 minutes to 180 minutes, rather than just have them make the decision.
So, okay, let's start on page 15. So your suggestion would be what for level 1?
Well, it's basically the disciplinary code, but I would like to make it a little tighter and a little, give them more, it warrants a stiffer penalty rather than just a warning. On the first offense, you can give up to 180 minutes. And the second offense, you can give up to 180 minutes there. And the third offense, you can give up to 180 minutes. So that's basically more time and more. Also, I like the idea of, in this particular thing, having an isolation. Having them right there close to the all the activity is too convenient for some, and I would like it to be, I would hope that we could put them in some room, isolating them away from everybody else, and then that's, you see where I'm coming from?
Sure. And so page 15 is elementary, so we're talking about kindergarten.
Yeah, and during, I was going to say, 180 minutes for a first grade student. I mean, I don't know if there's any research out there, but to me that seems like a long time for, you know, a first grade student who's,
Well, yes, I agree with you there, and that's why I just wanted to make it a leeway.
You're saying up to.
Up to.
The principles of
Yeah, I want them
flexibility.
to make the
You're saying
decision
15
as
to
to what
180.
is appropriate and things like that, because you hear all these little comments, and I would like to tighten things down a little bit if they wish to.
The consequences for
That would
first,
be
second,
not-
and third would all be the same then.
Yeah, they'd be the constant all the way through the whole system, and but also would give them the option of putting them in an isolated room.
Is that a practical thing?
No, it's not practical and it's not
I
legal.
don't know if it's legal either.
Well, I mean,
Not
you can
anymore.
have them with an aide or something like that. Or,
We don't, right now we don't have the staff to do it, speaking of middle school. I mean,
The room has to have a window in it. We can't close the door. There have to be staff within so close, but we don't have staff that would be able to be in the room with somebody. And I'm not arguing with you, because the issue of them being in the office when lots is going on is not good. But the issue that comes with isolation, number one, is there are illegal parts of what most people think about related to isolation. And frankly, I don't think we would want to do that. You know, put a kid in a room with the door closed and nobody in there. But
No,
that
with
room, that
supervised.
little room right there, just to the left of that desk. Has to have the door open. And if the door were closed, it'd have to be an older student, like a high school age kid. It has to have that window in it. The window can't have anything on the window. I think it's every 15 minutes we have to check the room.
No locking mechanism.
No locking mechanism. I'm trying to think of the other guidelines, and they're all there for safety reasons, which makes sense. So when we start thinking about that, then that's why our kids are in the office. And that's why sometimes, honestly, our principals pull the student into their office because they're there with them, they can close the door. And we'll have told you, we've had them in our office rather than in the outside office so that they weren't part of all the conversation and the phone calls and everything that goes on. But sometimes that doesn't always work. But we cannot include isolation as part of this. The up to
How about twisting that around, putting them in a classroom that's available? That's isolating them too.
in a classroom,
In a classroom that's available.
we have to have someone with them to
that's
staff it.
not-
Yeah. We have teachers that have prepped some periods, but you can't assign a teacher to a student in suspension and call it a prep period for a teacher. They're up to 180 minutes. I get what you're saying right now. You just want them to be able to have that much time if they want that time. And I think you guys can answer. You struggle with not wanting them in the office, but then at times when I've been a principal, I've had them in my office, then I'm dealing with something else, so I move them out of the office for a while, then I move them back in the office.
But I get what you're saying about the whole entertainment value. If you're sitting in the office sometimes,
Absolutely.
I mean, you hear great conversations if you're a kid, and it's
The
not a
phone's
bad
ringing all the
punishment to
time.
have.
Yep.
We get it back from a different
Sure.
angle.
Yeah.
Sure.
And, oh, it's fun, and all heaven.
Well, we use this room and the room in my office are the two that we use, and at times we've moved them where they sat with Kelly in his office, you know, it just depends on how many kids you have in suspension at one time.
That last week, I walked in to use the copy machine, and there was a kid sitting there
Right.
looking right straight out the window. So I walked in, and I'm like, hey, you're in suspension. This isn't about checking out the hallway. But when you think about all the things that it takes to provide them an environment that's boring and awful to be in and still safe, you know, that's kind of a trick. Kevin is lucky, not lucky, but lucky Kevin. Off from his office area is a small little office that has a window in the door. So literally, you know, he could have a student in there and they won't be around anything else other than probably hearing your conversation on the phone. And that door could be closed because of the age they are, and there is a window in it. But none of the other principal's offices have anything like that. And
When that new restraint law came out, it pretty much took care of it.
well, we didn't do a lot of that before because
No.
it doesn't feel right. I mean, if that were my child who's gotten in trouble and you're going to put them in a room with a locking mechanism, no window in the door, and I've got a second grader that you're going to do that to, I'm going to be mad. Because you know what? My kid did the wrong thing and you consequence them. But don't you dare leave my child like that because that's wrong. Just everything about being an educator says that's the wrong thing to do. And the last thing we want are high school kids with the door closed and no window in the door.
Well, they have to be supervised. That's
Well,
obvious.
the supervision part of it is our tricky part, because we
Yeah.
just don't have people.
We,
How did in-school suspension work? I don't remember.
There was a person that was hired.
Just to do in-school
Just to
suspension,
do
was
it.
that high school, junior high, high school, or was it high?
Well, junior high school was the same building when I was.
Yeah, so there was just one in-school suspension for 7th through 12th.
And when there were people in there, they were busy. When there were people that were not in there, then you were paying for person dues.
And that was after the second.
Yeah, I remember that they had, I remember how it worked, so.
But the door, even then, the door was open, you know, the door was open except for when kids were moving classes and it was a long room, there was a window. The teacher sat in there at a desk with you. You had questions, you went and asked. I mean,
Is this when you were in high
I
school?
was gonna say, he sounds like he knows a lot.
That's what I was gonna ask you.
Stacy was there.
I'm just sitting here thinking, when I was in high school, I got after-school suspension. I never got in-school suspension. Whatever happened to detention? When I got a detention, that was after school.